Aerith. This here is Spider-Girl 47, an issue, the first issue, by a new creative team. The last-ditch attempt at making the book work. We have writer Anne Nocenti and artist Postman Pat. They are revamping Spider-Girl for what turned out to be the final issues. And this one features a villain, well, a character, he's not much of a villain, called Daddy Longlegs, whose story I have, for 20 years, wanted to read. That is how bad I am at reading the comics. It took me 20 years to get around to this one. One thing I adored is that we are resetting Spider-Girl to her direction of 3 runs ago. The Marky Mark G run. He edits this as well. We are having her fight creatures of the night and whatnot. And this is Dig Dug. Dig Dug has been burying people alive because he thinks they are already dead and that they need committed to the grounds. Dig Dug is an odd character. An interesting case. He was the host to a few of Marvel's horror comics. Tower of Shadows and Chamber of Chills. He first appeared in issue 1 of Tower of Shadows. He was the Crypt Keeper from Tales of the Crypt, basically. He would host the majority of stories. He would introduce them to the readers, and then sometimes do an outro. This appearance in Spider-Girl would be the one that made him canon to the Marvel Universe. After this, he, like every other cunt in Spider-Girl, joins Neat Shift. The one appearance with Neat Shift I most remember him from is West Coast Avengers 40, which opens with a similar sequence to this issue, but with Mockingbird taking them down. That issue was written by Marky Mark G, as was the creation of Neat Shift. After that, we have some Jennifer Drew. She and Lindsay are now roommates, and Lindsay is privy to her secret identity. While we are re-establishing the tone of Marky Mark G's run, I'm sad to say any lesbian subtext is gone the way of Deborah Winger's career. This story involves a black dancer who is too short to get the good dancing jobs. So in desperation, he tracks down Black Giant Man and does a dance kick in his face and steals and then consumes as much of his Black Giant Man syrup as he can. He overdid it, obviously, and so he becomes a giant gangly freak. He becomes Daddy Longlegs. I love Daddy Longlegs. This is exactly what I liked about the Marky Mark G run. Freaks and weirdos. And I like this maybe more than everything but the Needle from that previous run. This has a good little backstory. We have got some continuity with Black Giant Man involved. And it's just a decent, somewhat unique thing to have in Spider-Girl. Let's explain what's been going on with Spider-Girl. Right, after Marky Mark J wrapped up his run with issue 20, the one where she finally met Spider-Man, we had a run by Max Fleischer, which I wanted to like. He did some good Spectre stories, but I resented how hard it went against the direction that came just before it. The first issue has Spider-Girl disguise herself as an hard woman. Hated it. Gave up then. Human Fly is in one. I didn't get that far though. I got like 14 pages into the first issue and then bailed the minute that disguise shit happened. Then we have Christopher Clairvoyant. He made her into a standard Christopher Clairvoyant superhero woman. Other than the design and the powers and the names, her stories were indistinguishable from something he would or could have done in Miss Marbles. The two things people remember from him are Bangle, Squealy's daughter, first appeared in his run on Spider-Girl, and then he also revealed Madame Hydra's was Spider-Girl's mam, which had already been retconned away as Madame Hydra's been high on opium by the time we get to Ann Nonsense's first issue here. Spider-Girl gets called in by Black Giant Man, who tells her about the youth who stole from him. Part of the problem with the Marvel Universe at this point is that any characters on the West Coast all have to know each other, because there is a very limited cast that are not in New York. Spider-Girl lives in San Francisco. Black Giant Man is in LA. They're quite far apart, but that's also kind of how Neat Shift came to be. Now, Daddy Longlegs, he is angry. He was too small to ever matter to the dance world. And now he is too tall to matter to the dance world. I absolutely love how freakishly tall he is. It's great. And so Daddy Longlegs turns to anger and he starts smashing shit. I will explain my Daddy Longlegs thing now. Daddy Longlegs is an extremely minor character. Never had a Andy Book profile ever. Never truly appears again, I don't think. But he is part of lore that would keep coming up in the books I read. Our first example is Iron Man Annual 7, one of the first back issues I ever got. That is the issue where Atlas Man gets his size growing powers. That is, Daddy Longlegs was incorporated as part of that origin. Dr. Carl Malice, the mad scientist, cured Daddy Longlegs off panel and took the Black Giant Man formula and was able to apply it to Atlas Man. That was when I learned about Daddy Longlegs, and I was, maybe at the time, I didn't think much of it, but then in Captain America, I actually cannot find any examples of it, but we would keep hearing the name Daddy Longlegs and this bit of continuity more than a few times when it came to the Power Brooker and Carl Malice. So I was always wanting to read this story and fill in those blanks. With this, I was actually, I haven't said so yet, you might have inferred it, but I loved this issue. We have a decent visual bit here with Daddy Longlegs blending in with the trees in the background. But it is also dumb, because it only works in the world of imagery. Why wouldn't Spider-Girl notice one of these trees behind her is in fact tuxedo fabric instead of wood and bark? He hijacks a ballet performance and then forces the audience to watch his far from graceful dancing in this warped body of his. There is some commentary here. There is some social commentary about the art crowd. It's not good, but I'd also say it's not too painful. And nonsense. This is some of her first writing. She did, for better or worse, always work some cultural critique or analysis into her works. There was a lot of stuff about television and show business in the Tom Petty miniseries. Daredevil had a very strong focus on sex and gender with Thyroid Mary, exploring gender dynamics and using sex and sex appeal as a weapon, making men her playthings. And then later in the run, there was a lot of stuff badly exploring feminism and sexism. After all this, I like Daddy Longlegs. Love the idea. He's a fun idea. He's a fun visual. He is a solid pseudo-villain to feature. But what he is not is at all a character. I expected to have not just a fight scene, but a fairly long one that surprisingly works. His agility and his liveness allows him to easily dodge and avoid Spider-Girl's attacks. And even in this misshapen form, he still moves with the subtlety and purpose of a dancer. I am impressed here by Ann Nonsense, a writer who I would think of as someone who preferred to shy away from fighting for fighting's sake. She does this completely professional superhero fight in her first Spider-Girl issue. There is even another strong visual. Spider-Girl climbs up Daddy Longlegs. She climbs up his body like he is a wall and punches him in the face. We have some sympathetic stuff here, sympathising Daddy Longlegs. They bond a bit, Spider-Girl and Daddy Longlegs. It's good. I like it. Overall, it is a very strong issue. It knew what it wanted to do. It had fantastic ideas that it executed how I wanted to see them done. Next issue is the return of Travel and Community Moth. Another issue I am looking forward to reading because she later goes on to be a member of the Thunderbirds. Now over here we have a special announcements section, and I didn't bring this up. I would have if this didn't exist. Throughout, my feelings were, this is very Marky Mark G, this story, this issue. We are going back to his setup and we've got a villain like Summit from his run. Well, here, Marky Mark G brings up both those things. Daddy Longlegs was his idea, which was fleshed out a lot by Nocenti and Postman Pat. And he was deliberately trying to take the series back to the dark, mysterious Avenger of the Night angle that he had previously brought forward. He felt that the series had strayed from it over the years. This is tricky because on one hand I agree entirely. That was what Spider-Girl should have been. It worked when he did it. It works when Nocenti did it here. It really should have been what made Spider-Girl's book unique, but it was abandoned by Max Fleischer and Christopher Clairvoyant. As much as I agree, I do not find it appropriate or right for an editor to reassert their take on a character or a series after that title has moved on from that. You cannot have her be grounded and real after Unposable Man comedy stories. It's complicated for me because I do so prefer this Spider-Girl. The exact thing Marky Mark G is wanting to re-establish. But I think it is disingenuous after they botched it the first time. Ideally, after Marky Mark wrapped up his run, this should have been the next issue. I loved this issue. I found it almost perfect. I think it might even be better than Marky Mark G's issues on the series. It accomplished a lot more than he was able to do with the same loose ideas and themes. I recommend this one with a 7 thumbs up score.